China, you've changed. Long gone are the days of the hide our strength, bide our time doctrine of Deng Xiaoping. Xi Jinping's philosophy has been expressed as China needs to learn more about the world and the world needs to learn more about China. And learn the world is, particularly here in the culturally dominant West. With more than 1.4 billion people, the world's biggest stockpiles of foreign exchange cash, an annual GDP approaching $30 trillion, and the biggest chunk of global carbon emissions, which is almost 50%, the world's now sitting up and taking notice, whether we wanted to or not. With the biggest single consumer market, anybody wanting to do business there is modifying their products and services with China's rules and regulations in mind. With all the profits of their industry ultimately controlled by the government, they're launching the most expansive and expensive soft power exercises we've ever seen, namely the Belt and Road Initiative. China also happens to be where Australia sends most of its natural resources and where we buy most of our cheap stuff from. No national government with any sense would risk simultaneously offending their biggest customer and their biggest supplier, would they? Well, not over here, but enter stage right, the Donald. Who else would blurt out stuff like this?
We can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing.
You see, America's trade war with the People's Republic has really focused the world's attention on previously unseen projections of Chinese power around the world, but particularly into the supposed land of the free. From the construction of military forward operating bases in the South China Sea down to Vietnam, to authoritarian crackdowns in Hong Kong, to the voluntary kowtowing of American companies, to the dictations of the Chinese Communist Party. The most recent examples of this are found in the entertainment industry. Once America's greatest cultural export, it's starting to look more like a Chinese entertainment manufacturing hub on US soil. Blizzard, one of the few respected companies left in the gambling-addicted video games industry, banned a champion Hearthstone player and stripped him of $10,000 in prize money because he said this, which translates to "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age." And he said this in a post-match interview that was being broadcast live from Taiwan. They then claimed that that decision had absolutely nothing to do with their relationships in China, after claiming that they would always defend the pride of China on Chinese social media. I mean, speaking of Taiwan, that's another place China wants to wipe off the map, a la Turkey and prospective Kurdistan. The People's Republic of China claims the Republic of China as its own, even though they both claim to be the rightful government of China ever since the Kuomintang fled to the island back in 1949. Both have developed into independent states and neither has ever seriously interfered in the affairs of the other, with the Taiwanese government officially operating under a one-state, two systems model. Now, airlines and tourism companies are being told to remove any and all references to Taiwan from their websites and promotional materials by the Chinese Civil Aviation Administration, and even Qantas has complied with that one. As Supreme Leader for Life Xi Jinping said, quote, "All manoeuvres and tricks to split the motherland are sure to fail." What gloriously Soviet language. Chinese efforts in the United States, or rather efforts by US companies to placate the Chinese authorities, have seen the Top Gun sequel remove the Taiwanese and Japanese flags from Maverick's iconic bomber jacket. As one Twitter user put it, a film glorifying the US military bowing to Chinese sensitivities. Apple has removed the Taiwan flag emoji from its operating system, and the creators of South Park issued this heartfelt apology after their episode, Banned in China, pointed out the absurdity of American consumers being fed voluntarily censored media by American companies to comply with the sensibilities of the CCP. I mean, Winnie the Pooh banned because one of the few free-thinking Chinese citizens trolled their president by claiming he looks like a cartoon bear? I can't wait for the Stars and Stripes to don the hammer and sickle. Never again may we poke fun at those who have the most power over the rank and file. Even the new animated film Abominable by DreamWorks and Universal has added the highly controversial 9-dash line in the South China Sea demarcating Chinese waters, which has led to it being censored in Malaysia and the Philippines and even outright banned in Vietnam, whose territorial waters, as you can see, are effectively obliterated by the Chinese claim. The sporting world too is falling to its knees, with NBA team Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey tweeting, "Fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong," fairly innocuous, but subsequently getting his whole team, merchandise and all, banned in China. The NBA issued a disgustingly grovelling apology, and even LeBron James came out and slapped Morey down for not understanding the situation, which in turn saw Hong Kong protesters burning effigies of him. The Houston Rockets thing is a particularly big deal because it was the home of famous Chinese giant Yao Ming. But even their supposed new nationalism isn't enough to override their government's extreme sensitivity to other people's opinions. You see this sensitivity in Australia every single time an MP or government minister expresses a policy or even a fact that slightly differs with China's. She will roll out the People's Daily, the propaganda arm of the Central Committee since 1948, and tell our democratically elected government to pull its head in. In the past, this stuff could easily be dismissed as posturing for the sake of the domestic political scene, but with Xi Jinping successfully giving himself the gig of president for life, China's annoyingly good memory will only become more and more dangerous as they recall every little slight when they've got us over a barrel. The Hong Kong independence movement has only made them all the more rigid in their demands on the rest of the world. If someone designs a custom skate shoe depicting a historical event like this, you wouldn't normally expect it to make national news, but that's exactly what Vans did when somebody put together what I think is a pretty cool custom design depicting the protests in Hong Kong. Pretty much anyone who expresses support for Hong Kong is removed from NBA games in the States, and they're even shut down when it comes to things like esports. American companies are suppressing calls for political freedom, all to maintain access to a foreign market. It's political satire that writes itself, and it would be utterly hilarious were the consequences not so far-reaching and grave. You see, Western companies have taken the exploitation of the Chinese market for granted for years, and now, when it literally comes time to put their money where their mouth is, are squibbing it like greedy little cowards and apologising for the bravery and plain decency of their own consumers. Every time this happens, every time this power projection yields a positive result for the CCP, it reinforces the righteousness of their actions. Now, China's more willing than ever to throw their cash around, and we consumers in the West have made them a lot of it. They're building and buying up leases to infrastructure in just about every country on the planet. In Australia, the Northern Territory government gave them 99 years of control over the port of Darwin, our very gateway to Asia. Down here, in the People's Soviet Socialist Republic of Victoria, we've given them a similarly good deal on the Port of Melbourne, with promises not to build up and utilise our own assets in Western Port and Geelong. And the Belt and Road Initiative, frankly, is so big it requires a whole series of videos on its own. But it basically entails China taking financial control of these overland and sea trading routes. And this fun propaganda video.
Lawmakers open up, that's when the sharing starts. Resources changing hands and shipping out of wars. Ideas start to flow and friendships start to form. Then seems impossible. Oh, becomes a normal. Future's coming now. The Belt and Road is now. The shares are going to sound. The Belt and Road is now.
What they're not building or buying outright, they're buying sizable stakes in. Entertainment/investment company Tencent owns substantial stakes in everything from Activision Blizzard to Discord to Reddit, while Huawei is building mobile data networks pretty much anywhere they haven't been expressly prohibited from doing so. There is no end in sight to China's empire building. To combat the sheer scale of influence, we'd have to make salary and living standard sacrifices so great even the wealthy 1%ers would balk at the task. That's why China is now taking on America's bully pulpit of the Reds under the beds years. The biggest difference is that China's never been democratic. At least Richard Nixon only ever had a maximum of 8 years to wield his paranoid and corrupting influence. Unless we take a serious economic haircut now, China's going to be tomorrow's ruling empire, and it is not going to be anywhere near as entertaining as tomorrow when the war began. Because that would probably be censored too.